This is a clip from Basketball at the Bar Live. Let's talk about the Wizards. They finished last season with the fourth worst record in the Eastern Conference at 35-47. They're one of the few teams that made a pretty big in-season move at the trade deadline in trading Spencer Dinwiddie for Kristaps Porzingis. We also saw them move on.
Big offseason deal, too.
Yeah, we saw them.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Kyle Kuzma, and Montrezl Harrell.
And then they end up trading Harrell at the deadline as well. So let's talk about what they can do to improve this offseason. But before we dive into that, I just want to remind everyone what the depth chart looks like and the salary cap situation is, and also the fact that they have pick number 10 in this year's NBA draft. As far as the depth chart, according to ESPN, Tomas Satoransky is the starting point guard for this team. Ish Smith is filling in as his backup. Bradley Beal is the starting shooting guard, and Corey Kispert is backing him up. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, is the starting small forward on this team, and Denny Advia is backing him up currently. Kyle Kuzma, as you mentioned, that was just recently traded for last offseason, is the starting power forward, and Rui Hachimura, who was drafted just a few years ago, is his backup. And the newly acquired Kristaps Porzingis is the starting center for this team. Daniel Gafford is coming off the bench. And to break down the salary cap situation here, it's, there's a few highly paid guys on this team. First off, Bradley Beal. He's got a player option, $37 million. And he has until June 29th to opt in on this player option. Kristaps Porzingis has a $33.8 million contract for next season and a $36 million player option for the season after that. KCP, partially guaranteed next season at $14 million. Kyle Kuzma is under contract for 2 more years, $13 million next season, and a $13 million player option the season after that. Thomas Bryant is expiring, $8.7 million. Rui is entering in year 4 of his rookie deal. Denny Advia is entering in year 3 of his rookie deal. Ish Smith has a partially guaranteed $4.7 million deal for next season. Corey Kispert is entering in year 2. And Daniel Gafford, $1.9 million next season before the extension kicks in, $12.4 the year after that, $13.4 the year after that, and $14.4 the final year. Can't forget about Isaiah Todd and Vernon Carey. Carey is entering in year 3 of his rookie deal, and Isaiah Todd has got 3 more years left on his deal. The team is hovering right around that salary cap, Calvin. So I want to hear from you. Top moves the Wizards need to make this offseason.
Well, man, this one is so tough. The Wizards might be the most underachieving team for me in the last 5 to 10 years. When you think about the talent that they've had in this organization, John Wall, Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, Porzingis, now they've got Kuzma, they had Harrell, all of these guys.
Dwight
Howard, and they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing the entire time. And now they've committed a ton of money to these guys. I love Bradley Beal. I would want him on my team. I love the fact that he has stood by this organization through everything. But if I were running this team, I'd look to trade him. I really would. I would probably go full rebuild here.
Wow.
Because this roster, they've got a lot of good individual players, but I don't have any confidence in them being a playoff team next year. They haven't shown me that at all. Beal's been hurt a lot. I definitely don't trust Porzingis.
Also hurt a lot. Yeah.
Kuzma played really, really well last year, but he was inconsistent at times. He's still kind of growing into the bigger role. I love Rui Hachimura. I think he's got a lot of potential. But again, I just don't think that this team fits together. It's been a hodgepodge of trying to bring in these big-name stars in the hopes that it'll take them over the hump, and it just hasn't happened. Bradley Beal, I think you work a sign and trade for him to get as many assets as you possibly can and start a rebuild. That would be the route that I go with this team.
Wow. I mean, just looking here, it's hard to believe that Bradley Beal is still only 28 years old. It feels like the dude has been in the league forever. And it's hard to believe that Kristaps Porzingis is only 26.
Yeah.
Because he's played exceptionally well and dealt with a ton of different injuries. For me, the number one need on this team is they need a point guard. And they need a star point guard.
Definitely.
Maybe John Wall decides to come back to this team. I don't know. He hasn't been happy or playing in Houston. But, yeah, I mean, this team is in a very, very tough position here. As amazing as Bradley Beal is, maybe you're right. Maybe they do need to consider trading him. It's so hard to get a player like that, and especially a player like that that wants to remain with your franchise, which is the only thing that's holding me back from trading a guy like Bradley Beal. But I do have a lot of concerns.
It's a lot like Portland that we kind of talked about a little bit on yesterday's show. Maybe the best option for them is to trade Damian Lillard and get a huge package in return. But it's probably unlikely that they do that.
Yeah, it's tough, because you look at a guy like Bradley Beal and Kristaps. I think they could be a very dynamic duo. But you have $70 million going out to them next season, and we don't even know how many games these guys are going to play because they've both just had so many injuries, which is very disappointing. I like Kyle Kuzma. He's still only 26. I think he's on a very reasonable contract at $13 million next year and $13 the year after that. And then you got just a bunch of these younger players that have shown some flashes of potential, but we don't really know what they're going to be. I like Corey Kispert a lot. I'm not sure what to think about Daniel Gafford. He could be going into this extension. And I think that he's played okay, but do I think that he's like the guy for this team? Probably not. So there are a lot of questions on this team. If I'm able to somehow find a starting point guard, like a good point guard, like top 15 starting point guard in the NBA this offseason, I'd be okay to try that out with Bradley Beal and Porzingis for one season to see what happens.
But you're going to have to trade for that guy, though. There aren't any top 15 point guards available in free agency that I can think of. And this draft is not very loaded with point guards either. Yeah. So
they have all their draft picks. They have the 10th pick in this draft. And then they have some guys that they can trade to fill salary like Caldwell Pope and some of these other guys. So I think it is possible, but yeah, if I were to do that, it would be like, this is the last year that I'm trying out this experiment, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going full rebuild. It's just so hard to make that decision when you have a guy like a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal that is such a good player and has been so adamant in wanting to stay with your team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's very tough. Let's touch here real quick on pick number 10. Anybody here you like in the draft around that 10, 11, 12 spot where you think could really help this squad?
Well, again, it's the same thing that we've been talking about with this draft class. There are some fine players for sure, but are you going to get somebody at 10 that, like you just said, immediately helps the team win? Probably not.
Yeah.
You might get somebody that helps you win 2 to 3, 4 years down the line, but I don't think that's going to make that draft pick is going to make the difference between making the playoffs and not. Maybe you end up in the play-in tournament, and who knows what happens. Hopefully Bradley Beal doesn't get COVID, but this team has just it feels like they're just running into a brick wall over and over and over again. Oh, we're going to bring in Russell Westbrook this time. Everything's great.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to trade for Porzingis. Him and Beal will be great together. Bam, run into the wall again. Like, yeah. I'm tearing it down at this point.
It's a very tough situation. What do you think you could actually get for a guy like Bradley Beal?
That's a good question. I certainly don't think, because of the injuries and the fact that it's going to be such a high price tag to re-sign him, it's probably not the same type of deal that we saw Paul George go for, when he was traded from Oklahoma City. That was just an absurd amount of picks and everything that you could get. But I would think that it's, maybe a 2 or 3 degree less deal than that. You should be able to get a ton of draft picks. I'm even maybe looking at a team like Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Pairing him and Gilgeous-Alexander together, Beal, that would be a really, really good start for them. You could get a bunch of picks back in return, maybe 3 or 4, something like that. And maybe you nab yourself a player like Lou Dort or something like that, who's a solid role player that helps defensively. I think a deal like that is definitely possible for Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I think you could definitely get 2, maybe 3 young players and 2, 3 first-round picks for a guy like Bradley Beal and help jumpstart this rebuild so you're not stuck in this like mediocrity point where, like you said, you're just running into a wall over and over and over again.
They're pretty much in NBA purgatory. No, really, they are. Like every year you look at the roster and they've got all these guys that are all-star level players or have made multiple all-star teams in their career. They're paid a lot of money. They got off to a really hot start this year. You're thinking the addition of all those 3 Lakers is what they needed. Harrell was looking great early on for them. And then it just fizzles out every year. Guys get hurt. After the trade deadline, they're basically a forgotten team again.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Porzingis?
I wouldn't be going after him if I was an NBA GM.
But if you're the Wizards, like he's only 26, so if you were to trade Bradley Beal, you could maybe build around a guy you get from Bradley Beal and Porzingis, or you just like, nope, Porzingis makes too much. He's got too many problems. We just need to sell him for whatever we can get out of him.
I think he's overpaid. Yeah.
But if you're not paying many other people on this team, maybe it's okay to have one guy that's overpaid.
Probably for a year or so. But again, if I'm going to go full rebuild here, I'm trying to create as much cap space as I possibly can.
What do you think is a reasonable package to expect
for Porzingis? That's a really tough question to answer. I think because of everything that's happened to him in his career, his size, his unique skill set, but the injuries, setbacks over and over again, that probably means that a lot of people in the league view him in different ways. I think there are still some teams or some individuals out there that would be willing to take a bigger chance on him, a bigger risk. And I think there are probably a lot of GMs out there that wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. Russell Westbrook for Kristaps Porzingis. Who says no?
I feel like we just did this.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point if you're Washington?
Maybe they can pick up a draft pick from the Lakers. I don't know.
Maybe.
But, yeah, they are in a very, very tough position here. They don't have a clear path out of this. If you're a GM, you got to define what your goals are, where you're going, maybe set up a timeline of like, okay, we're either going to try it out one more season to get to the playoffs. If we don't, we're hitting the rebuild button. Or maybe we're rebuilding now and our target is 3-4 years from now to be good. Because that's what it takes to develop young guys to, maybe get lucky and win a draft lottery or two and move up a little bit. But this is one of the toughest teams we've had to cover so far.
Yeah. Trust the process, Washington.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Any
It's
last
tough. It's really,
thoughts
really
for the Wizards or the Wizards fans?
Man, good luck. No, I just I don't know what to do with this team. I really don't. They're a very, very difficult one to try to decide. But if I just feel like the fact that Bradley Beal's in his prime, even though he's had a few injury concerns over the past couple of years, 28 years old, you should be able to maximize what you can get for him right now. And as great of a player as he's been and as good as as loyal as he's been and great for the fan base and the city, I just think that is by far and away their best option. I just don't see them getting any better with the way the roster is constructed right now.
If you're a Wizards fan, hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button. Calvin and I are going to be here all offseason breaking down the Washington Wizards and many other teams around the league, so make sure you stay tuned. If you love basketball, this is the place for you. Also, we'd like to hear from you. If you are a Wizards fan, let us know down below in the comments what you think the Wizards should do this offseason to help them get back to the NBA playoffs. Maybe it's trade Bradley Beal. Maybe it's hold on to Bradley Beal. Maybe you want to trade Porzingis for Westbrook. I don't know. But let us know down below. We'd greatly appreciate it, and we answer all comments. Milwaukee Bucks lose to the Boston Celtics in 7 games. Their second best player, Chris Middleton, has been injured pretty much the entire postseason. He's making $37.9 million next season, and he's got a player option for $40 million the season after that. Let's jump here into the numbers with the Milwaukee Bucks and try and figure out what they can do to improve and get back to the NBA Finals and win another championship. So I mentioned Chris Middleton is under contract for 2 more seasons. Giannis is under contract for 4 more seasons, 42.4, 45.6, 48.7, and a huge player option in 2025, 2026 of $51.9 million. Jrue Holiday is under contract for 3 more seasons, 32.3, 34.6, and a player option at 36.9. Brook Lopez is entering in the final year of his deal. It is an expiring $13.9 million contract. Serge Ibaka is officially off the books, as well as Wesley Matthews. We have Pat Connaughton returning if he chooses to, player option for $5.7 million. Bobby Portis, $4.5 million player option. Grayson Allen is under contract for 2 more seasons, one at 9.6 and one at 10.3. George Hill is under contract for 1 more year at $4 million. Calvin, this is a ton of money between their top 4 players in Giannis, Middleton, Holiday, and Lopez. I'm not a mathematician here, but this is looking like towards $130 million for those 4 guys next season. That is over the salary cap. That doesn't allow you a lot of flexibility or a lot of room. What does this team need to do? What are the biggest question marks regarding this squad? And what can we expect from them this offseason and next season?
Well, I think Phoenix here in the chat hit the nail on the head with this team. Most teams that we see as championship contenders are kind of in the same boat every offseason, right? Like you have your top 3 or 4 guys locked up. A lot of times you're committing a lot of money to them. So the question is, how do you fill out the rest of the roster? You know, with these veteran guys that have been around, like a PJ Tucker, good 3-point shooters, 2-way players, guys that you can get on the mid-level exception or veteran minimum deals. That's how these teams are built. Their issues going into this offseason, number one, they got to get healthy, right? Like everybody does. They need Middleton back. But like Phoenix said in the chat here, Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton both have player options for next season. Mm-hmm. Bobby Portis was huge for them this year.
He's getting paid.
Career highs in points and rebounds. Career high in minutes played this season. He started 59 games for them when Brook Lopez was out with back surgery. He's probably going to get like 13 or 14 million a year in the offseason. Yeah. I don't think Milwaukee has the cap flexibility to pay him that. So I definitely see him opting out. Connaughton is a question mark for me. I think he's a valuable player and probably is valued by a lot of teams in this league, but I don't know if opting out for him earns him as much more money as Bobby Portis is going to get when he opts out. Yeah. And the question for Pat Connaughton is, does he want to go somewhere else, or does he want to? Is he looking for a bigger role, like maybe a DiVincenzo was or something like that, or does he want to come back and keep playing for this team and have another chance to win? So he's a question mark to me as to whether he opts out or not. But that's going to determine how they fill out the rest of this roster, whether or not they can get some of these guys back, and who do they look for to replace them.
Yeah, for me, the biggest offseason need for this team is get healthy and add shooters. I think we saw that in the playoffs this year. Giannis needs shooters around him. A guy like that can get to the basket so easily, that's, you know, as amazing of a player as he is, he needs help, right? And how you help out a great player like that is getting shooters. It just takes the pressure off of him. It opens up the lane for him to get to the basket. And it just makes it so that he doesn't have to work as hard for every single bucket that he gets. and then he has more energy towards the end of the game. So for me, number one goal, Chris Middleton needs to come back. He needs to be healthy. I like Drew Holiday. I like Brook Lopez. I think Bobby Portis, like you said, opts out and gets paid somewhere else. I'm mixed on Pat Connaughton. But this team just needs to figure out a way to add some more shooters. And, they kind of screwed themselves in getting rid of Dante DiVincenzo, in my opinion, because there's not a lot of young up-and-coming guys that this squad really has to help push them. Like everyone talks about, you need veterans, you need older players to win in the NBA. Look at the Lakers this season. They had a bunch of veterans, a bunch of older players, and they just didn't have that spark that youth gives them. We saw that with the Memphis Grizzlies this season, right? It's almost like they're too young to know that they're not this good or they're not good enough. It gives you like just an unlimited amount of confidence. That, I think, is what this team is missing. So I think they need to find a way to bring some more youth to this roster. They need to add shooters, and they just need to get healthy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. A couple of good questions in the chat here. Do you want to maybe look up what Milwaukee's draft capital is like for the offseason? I think they have...
I think it's a late pick.
Their pick this year, their first-round pick.
Yeah, pick 24.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question about Brook Lopez. He is getting older, and he carries a bit of a price tag, but I think he's very valuable for that team. He's still maybe not the rim protector that he was a few years ago, but he still is able to help in that regard. Great outside shooter, spaces the floor really well. I think he plays with Giannis very, very well. So I'd probably give it one more year with him, Yeah,
and I would try and bring back Bobby Portis if there is a way. Progressive G saying Carmichael Dave said he wants the Kings to go after Bobby Portis.
There's going to be a lot of interest for him around the league.
And there's
a lot of interest.
A lot of players the Kings want to go after because when you're not making the playoffs, you got to add talent. Bobby Portis is one of those guys that he played incredibly well. He's going to get a good deal, but it's like, is that play sustainable? Have we seen a new Bobby Portis? Thank you so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. You can join us live every single weekday, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, don't forget to tip your bartender.